Has this ever happened to you? You're outside taking images of wonderful and colourful deep sky objects, not a care in the world, relishing in the fact that for the first time in 3 weeks, you finally have some clear skies. When all of a sudden, you notice something strange in your image. Now, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that that is a supernova remnant. But how can that be? How has a supernova explosion occurred within the same region as the highly popular, regularly imaged Veil Nebula? Surely someone else would have caught onto this before. Maybe it is just a one-off. Let's take another picture and find out. But there it is again, in the same spot. This unusual feature is a strikingly similar replica of the 1987A supernova, although this time from a slightly different perspective. I capture yet another image as I search Astrobin for any recent images or announcements. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No one has mentioned anything about it. It's at this point that I then decide that I need to capture more images and stack them together to try and figure out what it really is. After 20 minutes, I produce a stacked image that showed the suspected supernova remnant to have disappeared. But how could that be? What do you think? Well, it was at this point that I went on to the raw images and decided to play them back one after the other, before realizing, this was not in fact a supernova remnant, it was the result of a stray light source and poor collimation of a new telescope I'd been sent to review. Well, there go my dreams of supernova scotting 2024. The thing is, logically thinking about it for more than 5 seconds leads you to think, how could a supernova remnant appear in the blink of an eye, let alone in a region that is more than likely under 24/7 observation from amateur astronomers across the planet? Yeah, it was quite naive from me to think that, but it's not the first time that I've gotten caught up in an observation, and it certainly won't be the last. On the topic of explosions, here is the second instance in which I was adamant that I had discovered a supernova explosion. Last Christmas, I ran a small giveaway in which one of the prizes was to have your name converted into numbers that corresponded to a region in the night sky. I would then use a very powerful remote telescope to image this particular region. The winner of this prize was called Nadine. Her partner Hans got in touch with me later on to thank me and to say that he was a big fan of the channel, so naturally, won over by this compliment, I decided to do the same for Hans as Nadine. When their images were complete, I sent them the full resolution images, and I made a point of mentioning that because the images were 60 megapixels, there was lots to explore, especially in Nadine's. You could see so many tiny, faint galaxies throughout the image. But then Hans spotted something very unusual indeed. And I mean, talk about being a keen-eyed astronomer. He noticed there was this weird, funky-looking star-like point of light towards the bottom left of the image. Now, it definitely wasn't a star, but perhaps it could be a supernova. Gosh, anyone would think I'm obsessed with them. And if they did, they'd be right. So the first step of figuring out whether or not this was a supernova was to compare it with the most recent digitized sky survey. And oh, would you look at that? There is no history of there being a star there before. Bingo. Well, that seems like all the proof I need, except... Rewind.
There is no history of there being a star there before.
Well, that doesn't bode well. You kind of need there to have been a star there before for a star to blow up. And generally, that star needs to have been pretty big and noticeable beforehand. So I decided to image the star once again, except this time, it was gone. This time it wasn't the result of a stray light, so as I went back over the original image I noticed that there is a very faint blue silhouette to the right of our Houdini supernova. Now this is a stacked image of multiple long exposures. I wonder if that silhouette has shifted at all during the course of our images. That could happen, right? So I loaded the raw images up into PixInsight and opened up Blink, and look what I found. It's moving. So naturally I headed over to a website that helps you to answer the question of whether or not this moving point of light is a UFO or a dirty little piece of rock. I inputted the precise coordinates and the exact date, and of course it was in fact an asteroid. Yeah, maybe next time. I did use a bigger telescope to follow this particular asteroid for a while afterwards, just out of intrigue. And it turns out that because I was imaging using different colour filters, that as this asteroid moved across my field of view, it appeared to make these different coloured ghostly impressions. This also explains why it was not present in any of the previous deep sky surveys. The moral of these stories are, I did not discover anything new, and as an amateur astronomer, every single time I step outside and take a picture of the night sky, the odds of me capturing something new and previously unseen are very low. But they are not zero. And even then, as a consolation prize, you still wind up capturing images like this. I think it's fair to say that we all make mistakes when imaging the night sky, and I think stories like these about nearly discovering something groundbreaking and exciting are not only a reminder of the tenderness of our hobby, but also how easy it is to be drawn into the whimsical idea that you have just seen something from your wildest imagination, only to then realise it's because your neighbour's bathroom light is shining onto the edge of your telescope and producing this supernova-like artifact. So if you are brave enough, then I would love to hear from you in the comments about times in which you have been observing our night sky and thought you captured something special, only to realise it was actually a very humbling mistake. Thanks for watching, I'm Damon Scotting, and this was Astronomical.